Hola, hola. My name is Ramon, cosmetic formulator and licensed esthetician. That's right, your girl's licensed now. And today we're talking about a very interesting topic. As I have mentioned, I'm really interested, I should say, when I see other creators launch brand skincare products. And today we're talking about a sunscreen launched by another content creator, Dr. V, aka Vanita Rattan, a content creator. She also runs a clinic that claims to specialize around pigmentation-related issues in skin of color. And she's also a cosmetic formulator, so she's had products for a while now. But recently, it came to my attention that she launched a sunscreen, and a mineral sunscreen at that. I'm not sure if she herself formulated it, but it's exciting, it's interesting to see from her line, especially because of what she tends to focus on with her content and because it's specifically marketed towards skin of color. And so today with that, I'm talking about the new InZincable sunscreen from Dr. V. I did buy this with my own coin and I've been trying it out for the last week. And so I'm gonna be showing you application footage, how it wears with makeup, how it reapplies on itself, how it wears on oily acne prone skin. We're also gonna be testing if it is brown skin friendly as it claims. And I will also be talking about the claims of this product, which going through them, that was what caught my attention in the first place. And there's a lot of things that I think are very noteworthy. I think you should really go check that part out. The timestamp for that's going to be down, obviously, in the little slide. That for me is where there's a lot of big question marks and exclamation points. Stay tuned. How I test and how you're going to see it on the application footage. For every sunscreen, I weigh out 0.8 grams, which is the amount that I specifically need for my face size. I've measured it out. I have a video on that up here explaining if you want to know. I'll be applying it to my face, working it in for a few minutes, and letting it sit down for at least 5 minutes before I go on top with makeup. I also have a second day where I wear it on just bare skin and see how it reapplies on itself, if there's any white cast and if it exacerbates any white cast. So getting into application, day one was the day I wore this on bare skin just to see what it would look like. And so you can see I weigh out the sunscreen, start to apply it to half my face and work it in. And first thing I notice is just a little bit of a lotion moisturizer texture. It has a little bit of body, but it's not too heavy. It does have a quality that kind of reminds me of like a gel cream, but it is just a little bit more rich. It works into the skin though really nicely and it melts in very, very quickly. I don't have a lot of issue. Like it doesn't require a lot of elbow grease to work it in. You can see on my face what it looks like, half face no sunscreen versus half face with. Tell me what you think down below in the comments, but I think it looks really good. So with that said, I apply it to the rest of my face and then I let it sit down for at least 10 minutes and then you can see what it looks like afterwards. And then I just go about my day for a couple hours because this is the day that I just reapplied it after wearing it on bare skin. A lot of times what happens with mineral sunscreens that look good on first application is when it comes to that second application, it exacerbates what minimal white cast there might be. Because I mean, I'm gonna be real, I'm in the middle of a skin tone range. I'm not very deep dark, so I'm not obviously a good gauge for how it looks on deep skin. If I ever find receipts on other creators trying it on and applying it on deeper skin, I do always include that in the description box. I've only seen two creators who I've seen do so. Those are Josie Eleanor and Lakeisha Adams. Josie is a little bit deeper than I am, and then Lakeisha does have a much deeper skin tone. For both of them, it actually does look good on their skin as well with initial application. With re-up on me, it actually looks very well still. I'm not mad at it. The white cast is not my issue with reapplication, so it is something I could trust to reapply a couple times throughout the day and know it's going to look good. For day two, this is the day I wore it with makeup, so I go in and apply that 0.8 grams across my face, work it in, let it sit down. Then I go on top with makeup because it does claim to be a good base for makeup. A very simple beat, nothing much going on, and it looks really good. But what I will say is it's a moisturizing texture. It's got a moisturizing body to it, and that's nice for makeup at initial application, but how that wears throughout the day can vary substantially. Was I greasy at the end of the day? Yes, I have oily acne prone skin, but did my makeup break up where it normally does around my nose and the center of my forehead? No, very shocking. But what I will say is it did really crease in my eyelids. It has a body, it has a texture to it, so I do feel it on my skin. I don't feel like it ever sets down into my skin. So makeup sits on it nicely, but makeup sits on top of the sunscreen that's sitting on top of my skin. So I don't feel like it's ever melding as one unit. So the fact that it lasted all day, very, very shocking. It's not one that I really want to trust if I need my makeup to look good in high humidity for several hours. So application out the way, let's talk about my experience with it. I'm going to use what I call my 4B testing rubric, where I talk about beard, beating, beat, and brown skin friendly. First B, beard, how it wears in facial hair, eyebrows, hairline. And this is where generally, no matter what the mineral sunscreen is, that's where I tend to have a little bit of an issue with that. I don't feel like I had much of an issue. I remember I had my boyfriend look at me when I had it on and he was just like, I only noticed a little bit of it in your hairline and beard line because it tends to accumulate here in the edge. I could rub that out really quickly and not have that be an issue. So very positive experience with this overall. Beating, how the texture wears overall with skincare. Does it peel? Are there weird texture issues? No, it wears really well with skincare. What I will say though is this is one you wear for both skin types, honestly, as a moisturizer. It's a very moisturizing texture. If you have a moisturizer underneath, especially as an oily skin person, it's a little bit too much. It's where it gets to feel a little bit too heavy and you really feel it on the skin. And it has, she says, a dewy finish. It verges on being greasy in my opinion. And I remember watching Josie's review and she agreed with me as well. So worth noting. Beats how it wears on makeup. As I mentioned, it preps the skin really nicely for makeup. As it mentions, it's great for makeup application. It's too moisturizing. So depending on what the makeup is, what the day is like, and what you want out of your makeup, you will get oily. My makeup didn't break up. I'm not saying that won't happen to you, but just worth noting, if you have oily skin, be wary of that. You will be blotting, you will be powdering, and make sure that makeup is matte. I believe Dr. V Mix claims this is something you can reapply over makeup as well, like to reapply. Nothing I'd ever want to do with a mineral sunscreen. I believe Josie had a very negative experience doing so, and I think Lakeisha did too, so would not reapply with this over makeup. And the last B, brown skin friendly, very objectively, very upfront, and you can see it on the footage, looks really, really good on me. I'm a Fenty 290 in their regular foundation. I'm a 10 in their skin tint. As I mentioned, Josie and Lakeisha's videos are going to be in the description box. It works really great on them as well. This does use nano zinc particles, and nano basically means it's smaller than the micro-sized particles that are used in normal sunscreen formulation. So because it is an even smaller zinc particle, it's able to be a little bit more elegant on a more universal skin tone range, because when you have bigger particles of zinc, zinc itself is an insoluble particle. So it's just this white pigment that is suspended in sunscreen formulation. Because there is a small amount of reflection involved in that, that's what causes a good amount of that white cast. When you make the particle smaller, you are greatly minimizing that, and so that's reducing the white cast. So that's why it looks a lot better on more skin tones. It's not 100% invisible on every skin tone, but it really helps make it a little bit more universal. So let's get into the claims of this, and that's what really caught my attention, just because marketing, especially around sunscreens, especially around mineral sunscreens, there's always something. There's always something, whether it's like fear mongering or whatnot. Dr. V, she runs a clinic that deals with primarily pigmentation related issues with skin of color. Her skincare philosophy is primarily focused on that mentality, really trying to help prevent pigmentation related issues like post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, melasma, etc. in skin of color that obviously has more melanin in it, because those are the skin types that are more susceptible to those issues generally. And so I can see a lot of that in the marketing for this. And I just want to go through, look at the product claims, just one by one. Let's go, let's do it. First and foremost, it's invisible. That's in the title. Always subjective when it comes to a mineral sunscreen. That is not something I like to see, because you can't really make that claim, because you really never know how it's gonna look on every skin tone, because skin types are also a big factor as to the success of a sunscreen. So just note right off the bat, I'm not gonna say it's invisible for everyone, because I haven't seen that, and it's something I want to see proven with a mineral sunscreen. For face and body use, this is 50 ml. This is a 50 ml packaging for 25 pounds. Again, I don't know how much it's gonna cost to get it in the US, so it's gonna be even more than that. It's a small package. If she had this in a bigger bottle, I wouldn't have an issue with that necessarily, but that's expensive. I don't wanna use this on my body. I would reserve using this even on my neck. For men, women, all ages, 2 and over, all skin types, including sensitive skin. It is mineral sunscreens. They tend to have a better safety profile. Maximum UVB, UVA protection. She claims it is PA4+, and I believe she says that they got a PA rating of 16.4, something like that. So that is the PA4+ in Korean sunscreen system. It is zinc oxide, which has, for a mineral sunscreen, a decent broad spectrum protection into the UVA range. Zinc, to me, has its limitations in the UVA range. And it is also nano zinc. It is also a thought that if you reduce the size of mineral sunscreen particles, aka make them nano like it's in this, it alters the UV absorption of the mineral sunscreen, in that if you make the particle smaller, it shifts the absorption more to the UVB side, meaning that it reduces the UVA protection of a sunscreen. But if you coat the filters in the appropriate way and formulate appropriately, which I'm going to trust that Dr. V did, she's a formulator and she runs a skincare clinic, I'm going to trust, and plus she also gave us the PA value that they tested for, that this does have adequate UVA protection. A question I did have was, here in the UK and EU, in order to designate that the UVA protection is at least a third of the SPF value, UVB protection, you want the UVA symbol circled, and that's not on the packaging at all. But another brand, another indie brand that I had this question for, was like, our designer said we didn't have to do that. So I don't really know the tea around that. I'm not like up to date on like all the EU regulations since I'm American, but no white cast designed for skin of color. And as you can see, as I mentioned, it looks great on me. And she is specifically marketing this. It's on the packaging, it's on the website, it's on the actual bottle itself for skin of color. If you look at the promo shots for all these. And I'm not gonna say it doesn't work for all these skin tones or whatnot, but all the models have full coverage beads on. They all got full faces of makeup on. I can clock the under eye corrector, the concealer, and I can tell they have makeup on. And these are all beautiful models of color, but I'm like, if you're going to market a sunscreen for skin of color, I just want to see it applied. Like, show me swatches, show me these models applying the sunscreen on their face and what it looks like half face with, half face without, or something like that. I don't want to see these models for a sunscreen. I have beef around it. Like, I don't want to see like any skincare campaign with like models in full beats if these skincare products intended to like have a specific result around like hyperpigmentation or something. But especially as sunscreen, I don't want to see the models wearing makeup. And on their website, she does show Dr. Alexa Stevens applying it. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Alexa Stevens, like, I'll have the website for this link there and you can see her video. She makes every mineral sunscreen work for her. I do not know how. I do not know the witchcraft behind it. I want to see, again, other people, different skin tones applying this and what it looks like. That's my one thing. I'm not going to doubt that it's not going to work for a lot of skin of color, but I just don't want all the models not showing the product and also then wearing makeup. Contains MelaShield, which is a trademark thing. I guess it's like a proprietary thing she has in terms of like some sort of antioxidant complex to reduce hyperpigmentation. Also, it stands in as blue light protection, and also you have some anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, anti-pigmentation benefits. It's a sunscreen, so you're gonna have those last three, those antis in there kind of regardless. Blue light protection and the MelaShield thing, that's an antioxidant situation. I'm not entirely sure what ingredients she has that give that benefits. She just says it's a UV stable stem cell vitamin tyrosinase inhibitor. They designed for people with skin of color whose primary skin concern is pigmentation from melasma, sunspots, acne, or any scars. It's nice to have in a sunscreen. I always love a little bit extra something for like antioxidant benefits. You see that sometimes with like botanical extracts or iron oxide. But what my thing is, she says, the difficulty with traditional treatments has been that the majority of tyrosinase inhibitors cannot be used during the day. And I just want to know, like, what? That's a very generalized statement that to me in the general sense is very wrong or incorrect or a little bit of an extreme, because I think of like tyrosinase inhibitors like niacinamide, which is in this, licorice root extracts, kojic acid, alpha-arbutin. Half of those, most of those, technically have antioxidant capabilities or functions to them, and they work great in the daytime, especially in conjunction with a sunscreen because of that. So I just want to know, what tyrosinase inhibitors does she mean that you can't use during the day? Are you talking about like retinoids? Exfoliators? Like, that's, and in my mind, those aren't necessarily tyrosinase inhibitors. They have different functions that tend to affect pigmentation. Tyrosinase inhibitors are specific ingredients that have functions that prevent melanin production or greatly reduce melanin production in the skin, in the epidermis. Whereas exfoliators and retinoids, they function a little bit more different. From my understanding, I mean, comment down below if you know something I don't. Tyrosinase inhibitors can't be used during the daytime. There's no weird phototoxic situation that I'm aware of. So that's a claim that I'm just like, please don't spew this, because you're gonna have people thinking they can't use things like niacinamide during the daytime now. And then a big thing for her, something I think she's coined, I'm not entirely sure, is something called NAFE Safe, which is NAFE, no denatured alcohol, fragrance, or essential oil. So if you have sensitivity to those, it doesn't have those. My thing with this, and I talked about this, especially because people who watch my videos also watch Dr. V's, and they ask me questions because her skincare philosophy and my skincare philosophy are contradictory at a lot of times. Is I don't got issues with alcohol and skincare products because I understand the function that they have, and she should too. And as a formulator, I mean, she has to know that. I don't see anything bad unless you are sensitive to that specific ingredient. Fragrance, same thing. I love a good fragrance in a skincare product. Like, I used my Fenty skin products the other day, and for the first time in a while, and I was just like, oh, this is so fun to use. If you have a sensitivity to fragrance or essential oils, like, clearly, like, don't use them. But with her content, as someone who runs a clinic, she tends to be a lot more conservative with her ideology and her skincare philosophy. And so for her, if it has the potential to cause any inflammation, which will lead to pigmentation-related issues in skin of color, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't want that in my products, which I understand. My big issue with that is just the fact that there's just a generalized statement made around that makes it seem like skin of color cannot under any means use these ingredients or have these things in the skincare products because it's bad for you. When in reality, it's not the case. If you are sensitive to these ingredients, definitely like avoid them or reduce the use of them in your skincare routine. But for a vast majority of skincare users and consumers, because again, the people who are actually sensitive to these things, it's like a small percentage, those ingredients aren't an issue. And I would rather her really specify that or be less generalizing with it. It can come across very much at face value for the average viewer who doesn't know. And then going on to like some of the FAQ parts, she specifies UVA and UVB rays, A's for aging, B's for burning, which I actually have content coming out about very soon, kind of explaining how it's not as black and white as we were taught to think, and UVB can cause aging, UVA can cause burning. Also, very simplified explanation of what an SPF value really means. It's kind of confusing because it says SPF 50 means it will take you 50 times as long to burn in the sun compared if you hadn't worn any sunscreen at all, which is kind of true. In practice, this means approximately 2 hours of protection. I get what she's saying, but realistically, we do know that what she's saying is you should just reapply sunscreen every 2 hours regardless, because that film of protection is going to start degrading and you want to maintain as highest protection as possible with your sunscreen. Then she says that this features 17% zinc oxide, which helps make this a 100% mineral sunscreen. She also has anti-inflammatory in parentheses, and I think what she's trying to say is zinc oxide can have anti-inflammatory benefits, but my understanding is in order for you to get those benefits from zinc, it has to be formulated a certain type of way, and the way that zinc is formulated for sunscreens is different, and therefore I don't think you can get the same anti-inflammatory benefits from a sunscreen that has zinc necessarily. Also worth noting is that's also, again, a generalization. If I wear too much zinc-based sunscreens for too often or too many days in a row, I actually get a lot of sensitivity in my skin, a lot of irritation around my eye area. So it's one of those things where it's like, as you can see, skin is very subjective. It's not a one size fits all. I don't actually like to wear a lot of zinc-based products too often because it doesn't work for my skin. But she also says that this is good because it means that there's no penetration of actives or nanoparticles in the bloodstream. This is why it's safe for pregnancy, children, and those with sensitive skin. And it's interesting to me that so much of Dr. V's content is actually on the verge of like what a lot of clean beauty brands do. It's very conservative. Some of it gets very generalized and a little bit into the fear-mongering range. I'm not trying to say she does it purposely, but I think, again, without really specifying and being a little bit more general, that's what it can kind of come to. That it's interesting that the nanoparticles and getting into the bloodstream is where she's on a different side, a different perspective, like in my opinion, like the more science side, and doesn't feed into as much of the fear-mongering just because so many of the other aspects of the brand and her content tends to teeter on a lot of the tropes that clean beauty also latches onto. It's easy to apply, spreads effortlessly, and absorbs well into the skin. Please apply no more than 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon, i.e. a fingertip at a time, so I guess work it in layers. But what I don't understand is in for the directions, it says after you cleanse and moisturize in the morning, apply 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of InZincable to the back of your hand and dot it around your face. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. I use 1/4 teaspoon for my face, my ears, and my neck, but everyone's faces are different sizes, so I think that range is adequate, but I think she should also specify like your neck and your ears are important to factor in as well. But then number 5 into the FAQ, what it looks like on skin, she says apply the recommended small quantity on clean, dry skin, not wet. So I'm saying, you're saying 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon, you're saying on the face only, then you're saying a small amount. Like, truth be told, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon is not a small amount, especially if you're saying to put it on the face. Look at how much a 1/2 teaspoon of sunscreen is. That's a lot of product. That's what I'm saying, like a little bit more consistency, a little bit more clarity in language would be a little bit more helpful. And the last one that I'm just like, why? Will InZincable stop me from tanning? And the answer is yes. All sunscreens will limit tanning to some extent. And I'm like, okay, so is it a yes or no? Like, is it going to not keep me from tanning, or is it going to work like a little bit? And as I've mentioned, I think I have a video, I link it up here, where I mentioned like, you're not gonna stop tanning altogether from a sunscreen. Like, I'm going to be very honest with that. It's not really possible. Sunscreen can only do so much for you in your UV wardrobe. Consider other factors, but just note, like, realistically, sunscreen's not going to keep you from tanning, point blank. Some of the marketing around this, some of the claims around this are just kind of like big question mark, why, exclamation point. Whereas some of the other parts I'm like, okay, I can like see some reasoning behind these. And so with that, that's my review of the Dr. V InZincable Invisible Mineral Broad Spectrum SPF 50. Is this a bad product? Actually, no. This looks really good on me. I haven't seen a lot of deeper skin influencers really try this out. The two I have, Josie and Lakeisha, are gonna be down in the description box. But if you got oily skin, do beware because it is very moisturizing. It can kind of get really heavy. It's not cheap. It's not the most accessible necessarily. So I'm gonna give it like a C. Let me know down below in the description box. Have you tried this? What was your experience with it? Also, to help kind of gauge things, tell me like what your skin tone is, just so we can have a way of like gauging it. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, notification bell so that you know when I post more skincare, sunscreen, and fancy related content on my channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.